Hello, hello. Welcome to the Money Talk, brought to you by Bartelle's Financial Coaching. I am Theresa Bartelle, Financial Coach.
And I'm Johnny Bartelle, co-host.
Thank you so much for watching our show. We will be interviewing Mr. Bradford Washington. He is an educator and also the author of The Green Print. If you enjoy our content, I ask that you subscribe to our channel, like it, and come back every Thursday for new content. Thanks again for watching and enjoy the show.
Hello, Brad. We want to thank you for being a part of the Money Talk this evening. And could you please introduce yourself and just kind of give us a little background on yourself?
Well, my name is Brad Washington. I am 32 years old. I'm a first grade teacher. I'm also a professional development specialist with the Boys and Girls Club here in South Carolina. I'm an author. I'm also a business owner now. I have the Green Print Social Emotional Learning LLC that I just launched in April. And I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. We are
I'm glad
so
to be here.
happy to have an author on our podcast.
Yeah.
So now that you've told us, your professions and how old you are, can you give the audience an idea of what your childhood was like? Did your parents teach you how to manage money? Like, were you raised with the poverty mindset? Because what I've noticed is that a lot of our life is based on our childhood when it comes to finances. So if you could give us a little background about your financial childhood.
I would say my parents did not have many conversations with me and my siblings about money. The conversations really didn't start, they didn't start until I was probably early adulthood. But in terms of me as a child, we didn't have those conversations. And I think that's pretty much a norm, probably in, probably some African American families. You just don't have those conversations about saving money, investing money, how to spend it, when to spend it. You don't really have those conversations. So, we didn't have those talks like that, but we did talk about it more as I became a young adult.
Okay, that's good. You have anything you want to add to what he said?
Yeah. So when you became a young adult, what type of conversations did y'all have in your family and to about finances, and how did you start learning about finances during that stage?
Well, to answer the first question, I credit my mom to that. My mom started it was little small things like having overdraft fees, and I used to blow her off, and she was like, those $2 add up, those $2 add up. I didn't really know. I just was like, okay, it's $2. But it started with that, and then she's very knowledgeable with finances as well. So as I got older, I started listening to her about the overdraft fee, so I made sure that didn't happen. I started asking her questions about like saving money, investing money, mutual funds, annuities. And so that got me interested in it as well. But I would say what kickstarted me independently about, learning about finance was when I was 19, when I was a work study intern with Boys and Girls Club. And I was only getting paid once a month. I was getting like maybe $300 something a month. And I was making $8 an hour. And I was only working 20 hours a week, 4 days a week or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one day when I got paid early December, maybe early January. I think it was early January. It was about a week, probably like around this time, about 12 years ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my bank to withdraw some money, but I realized I only had $95. And I don't know what hit me. You get older and you have those little life changing moments, and you can like, yeah, this is when things change. Like that's when things changed for me, when I decided that I would never have $95 in my account ever again.
So when you went to the bank, you thought you had more than $95.
Yeah, and I was just spending on not money, but I was spending on food and clothes and stuff. And I just got paid a week before, so I just got like $300 or something like that. So I didn't learn about budgeting. I didn't know about budgeting. So when I saw that I had $95 to my name and I wasn't going to get paid for another 2-3 weeks, that's when I said, okay, I have to learn how to really save my money.
Okay, and so Brad, you mentioned early on about overdraft fees. Just in case we have someone, a young person listening, can you explain what an overdraft fee is?
An overdraft fee is when you literally withdraw more money than you have in your account. Now, some banks, like I have a credit union, they will allow a certain amount of money for protection. So I probably have maybe $1,000 for protection that they will cover.
Uh-huh.
But every time they to cover, they're going to charge you $2. And every time they charge you $2, like, and you just absentmindedly doing it, like that's money going away that you're paying to the bank. That's just free money at your expense to the bank. And so those are the things that my mom was getting on me about. And I probably have blown maybe $200, but that's still $200, you know.
Right.
And she just kept saying, oh, this is gonna get you, this is gonna get you, and those ATM fees are gonna get you. I'm like, whatever. But then when you start learning more about money and how it works, about saving and investing and how to budget, then you realize like all of those things count. So you don't want to give the bank free money. So even now, I don't keep that much, you know, in my checking account, but I keep just enough where I don't have to worry about fees. The trick is you don't pay too much with checking. You pay those things with credit cards.
Okay. So during the time with those overdraft fees, your mom was helping
Yeah.
you manage your money and learn how to budget your money.
I won't say she was helping me. I won't say she was helping me, but she was a guiding light. But you just learn, you know, like it's like with a credit card, you don't have those fees. Now, if you don't pay your credit card, then you're gonna have to, you know, pay interest on that. And I'm sure we'll get into that later on.
Yes, you got anything else you want to ask?
Yes.
So Brad, so I like what
Yeah.
you said about that aha moment. That's what I call it. When you realize I only had $95 in the bank, what in the world
Mhm.
I'm going to do? This is not going to happen to me again. So
Yeah.
from that point on, tell me what was one of your first steps you did to not go through that experience again of having $95 in the bank. You was like, oh no, not again. What was your first step?
Well, that's actually a good question. That's a great question because one of the first things that I did was I started learning how to budget. And I didn't know it at the time, but it's really living below your means.
Right.
So
Mm.
I would say, you know, as I started progressing with Boys and Girls Club, I, you know, moved up the ranks. So the more you move up the ranks, you know, you get paid a little bit more money. So I started to save at least 70 to 80% of my check.
Wow.
And I
That's
would
a good
save
bit of
it.
money.
And then I would live off of $150, $200 between paychecks. And you know, it helped a lot living at home, but still, in my mind, I started creating a system that whatever I had in my checking account is what I have present. And it's actually a thought process I still carry over today. So it doesn't matter how much money I have in my savings. I always say, okay, this is what I have in my budget. My budget is how much money I have. And I train my brain to think like that. So however much money is left over, once I get paid again, then I put that money into the savings, get paid, save the 70%, and I start over again with that $100 or $150 or $200. And when I started doing that, I started realizing that I had to be more notorious for saving the dollar before I spend the dollar.
Mhm. I like that.
Yeah.
Notorious of saving a dollar before you spend a dollar. I like that.
Yes. And so when you do those things, I mean, you know, people start calling you like cheap and things like that. But but the more you do it, the more you learn about the saving and you learn about the investments and things like that, or putting your money in a high yield or a CD. And it creates a freedom that a lot of people don't have.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Say that one more time.
Yes. Say it
it
again, Brad.
creates a freedom that a lot of people don't have. But it starts with establishing those behaviors and whatever behaviors you want to do. Like mine's probably a little bit more not extreme, but it helped me. But whatever you want to do, you have to establish that, and you just have to say, okay, this is what I'm going to live off of. And so when you kind of treat yourself like that, like, hey, this is what I have. This is what I have to spend for these 2 weeks. You know, you can go out to eat, you can go on a date, you can get gas, get your groceries. But once you get past that limit, and sometimes every now and then you will go past your limit, but you want to be there at least 70 to 80% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of the things that I started doing when I was young, 21, 22 years old. I saved way more than I spent.
Okay. And you said you can contribute that to staying at home with your parents, correct?
I can because I didn't really have like bills. I didn't have like to pay rent or a mortgage. As I got older, I got a car payment and stuff like that. So you kind of had to diversify how you save, but establishing those early behaviors at 21,
Mm-hmm.
22, 23 is what helped. So once I got a car note, then I had to pay car insurance, I got to the point where I had enough saved up where I would just pay my car insurance off for the term.
So that's good.
Yeah,
But
see?
you said something else I think that we need to touch on.
What's that?
How do you feel when people tease you about being cheap? And then after you tell us how you feel about that, I want you to give some wisdom and some advice to our listeners about people saying you're cheap.
I actually have a story for you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bring it on.
It's one of my favorite stories. When people ask certain questions like that, it's one of my favorite stories to tell. So when I was 27, I had came up with a 3-point plan. I said I was going to pay my first part of my student loans off. I was going to find a place to live, and then after that, I needed X amount of dollars before I left. I needed to save up X amount of dollars. So I remember I just completed my first part of the plan, and I was talking to one of my best friends at work, and a former parent of mine, one of the students I used to teach, came in, and I was still living at home, but I was still doing that 70 to 80% saving money and stuff. So when he was like, "Hey, you haven't left home yet or nothing like that," I said, "Yeah, I plan on leaving." So he started calling me like a mama's boy, and then everybody started jumping in like, "Yeah, Mr. Washington, he's cheap, and he's this and the third," and it kind of did hurt my feelings
I bet it did.
at first. But when I look back on it, that was about 5 years ago. Having that plan in place really set me up for success. So sometimes and I guess that goes into the advice. Sometimes a lot of people just are not that good with money, and it's more common than we think.
Uh-huh.
And so if you have those plans in place for the people who are paying attention, who probably are getting called frugal or cheap or whatever, a lot of people don't want to put those plans in place. It's easier to just go and just spend and things like
Yes.
that. But it's hard. It's hard to come up with days like no spend days of what I call it or something like that. Or it's hard to say, hey, this is what I'm going to spend, or this is what I'm going to invest, or this is what I'm going to save. It's hard to do that. And you have to want to do that.
Yes.
So even though people call me those things, or that story where the guy was calling me a mama's boy, he didn't know what my plan was. And my plan went exactly to the T.
Mm-hmm.
I paid off a good bit. I paid off my first student loan. I found an apartment, and they was like, "Hey, you ready to move?" I said, "No. I need to save up X amount more. I need to invest in X amount more." And then when I left over my goal. So it's hard. It really is hard. A lot of people are not going to understand it, and they don't want to understand it. Now they want to be wealthy, or they want to save and things like that, but a lot of people don't want to do the work to do it.
Oh, say that one more time.
A lot of people don't want to do the work to do it, and you have to be willing to like learn and do things like that. So one of the things, like my brother always tell me, like, "Brad, you're great with this, but now you got to know how to." That's why I talk about investing more. You have to know how to invest, but you have to be willing to do those things.
Right. And so what words of encouragement would you give another young man who's trying to live within their means, but their coworkers or family may be calling them cheap?
You know what? The word that I would say is capital. Capital and money is freedom. You want to be able to go.
Say it again. That's say it again.
Yes.
Capital and money is freedom. You want to be able to feel good about going into a car place and saying, "Hey, I can purchase this car with a write of a check." You want to feel good about going to the grocery store and saying, "Man, I can get all of these things," but you have the discipline to say, "No, this is what I need to buy." You want to feel good about that. You want to feel good about, being able to purchase a home, or, get an apartment, or whatever the case is. You want to feel good about those things. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't feel good about it. And then they put themselves in so much debt, So what I would tell them is, like, it's freedom. It's freedom. Like, I'm not wealthy at all. Not at all. But can I go to a car place and feel good? And like, hey, I can walk out of here because, like I told you before, I own my car. I bought my car 2 years ago. I can leave here. Either you can work with me, or I can get in my car. It feels good to have that. So even though a lot of people may not understand it, but you do, you understand it.
Yes.
So don't worry about doing it for other people. You do it for you.
That's right.
That's
and so
right.
that's good advice. So if someone is
That's right.
listening now and you're trying to live within your means and you got friends and family calling you cheap, remember what my good friend just said. Capital equals freedom.
Capital.
Not being a cheapo.
It's freedom.
That's right.
Yeah.
Freedom.
It is freedom.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And you know what kind of reminds me too of Dave Ramsey, where he said live like no one else today, so you can
Hmm.
live like no one else tomorrow.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
That's
mhm.
right. So, Brad, do you have a wife?
I don't have a wife. I do have a girlfriend.
Okay. Do you have any children?
I don't.
Okay. Well, shout out to Anthony O'Neill. I adore
Yes.
Anthony O'Neill. And one of the things that he discusses is because he's kind of like you, he is wise with his money and he's single, but he's very careful when he take, ladies out on a date. Like he
Hmm.
don't overindulge. Has your mindset with your finances affected your dating relationship with your current significant other?
I won't say it affected, but you can't go in saying, "Yeah, we only gonna, go on a $20 date." Like, you're gonna have to expand it a little bit. You're gonna you're gonna have to. So whenever I do go see, her name is Lauren. Whenever I do go see her, I know, like, hey, I'm gonna spend a little bit. So I expand in my mind my budget. I do that. So, but again, you can't go and just, well, I'm just going to be cheap, or no, we're not going there. You got to enjoy yourself. But that's why you become wise with money. That's why you get interested in saving and finding out, like, where can your money work for you. That's why you get interested in stocks or whatever the case is, or investments, because you want to get to that point again where you feel comfortable just making those choices and say, hey, yeah, we can go and do this today, and it doesn't really hurt you. Now, it might hurt you in your mind in terms of your budget, but in the grand scheme of things, theoretically, it does not hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
So your
sense.
significant, yeah,
Oh
that
yeah.
makes great sense. So
Hmm.
your significant other, is she supportive in your mindset with money?
She is. She is. Sometimes she chews me out about it and says, you don't got to talk about money. You don't got to talk about it today. And she's right about that. But she is supportive, and she actually admires it a lot. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. You got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would think a young lady would admire that because you kind of take control of your financial life, right? A lot of
Yes.
times, I think and it could be anybody, right? If you're not in control of your finances, then you're kind of running out of control. So that's really good for you,
Absolutely.
Brad. That's good for you.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now,
Thank
tell
y'all
us
so
your
much.
mindset on saving for your future, and I'm talking about like your retirement, maybe your future
Excuse me.
wife or your future family. Can you tell the audience, being a single man, how do you prioritize your saving?
Well, I recently just moved a bulk of my money into a high yields savings account because it's going to have a lot of great dividends.
Hmm.
But my priority really is probably unpopular, but I don't agree that you should save and work all the way till you're 65. I think if you take care of business now, I think you can get to the point where in the next 5 to 10 years you have enough of a safety net, or you can live off a certain amount of money where you can kind of just do the things that you want.
Ooh,
I've
love it.
been working in the kid business for 13 years, but in the next 3 to 5 years I don't want to really want to be on someone else's schedule, probably sooner than that. So that's where
Ooh.
some of that is coming from, where I'm kind of building up, where I can go and work independently, but I have enough that I could just say, hey, I could take out maybe 20% of what I have and say, hey, I can live off of this. I can still work. I can still do this. I could kind of do it on my own terms. I can pay my rent or mortgage. I can pay my bills. And then this is the money that I'm going to live off of in terms of like expenses and things like that. And then, the money that I'm making, hopefully that returns. And then I could just continue that process, the next, year, 2 years or so. But that's where I'm at right now. Of course, in terms of like, for the future, you want to be able to, finance a home. And if you need to get a car or a vehicle, or, kids will come into play. Of course, they're expensive, but you want to have enough for that again, so you can just wake up and say, hey, we have the credit line for this, or we have the cash for this. You want to be able to just say that. You don't want to just wake up and say, well, how can I do that? So a lot of the times when we get to the point where we say, well, how do I do that? It's because we miss so many steps, and we was living so much for now instead of preparing for the future.
Mm,
So, if I understand you
mm.
right, I'm understanding you to say by the time you're 37, you don't plan on punching nobody clock. You plan to be
No.
working independently.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, with that being
Woo.
said, So, like with your retirement plan at your job, are you
Hmm.
invested in your retirement plan or are you
Yes,
investing on your own?
I'm investing in a retirement plan.
Okay. And so, do you think you're investing enough in your retirement plan to be able to reach your goal by the time you're 37? Or are you saving money outside of your retirement plan in order to be done by the time you're 37?
Definitely saving money on the outside, and that's one of my goals this year is really just to live. I mean, I already kind of try to live below my means, but really just focus so much on putting X amount of dollars to the side every time I get paid or whatever the case is, or if I'm doing something or something with the business related, like just really not spend that money and really just focus on the budget. Of course, if the budget goes
Mm-hmm.
away, then it's not the end of the world. But really just like, hey, stop touching that money. Let that money grow. Let that money go over there and compound.
Hmm.
That's my goal for 2024.
That is
Wow.
wonderful. But
That,
now, with living like that, do you feel deprived?
that was my yes.
Deprived as in,
Living life and enjoying life, doing other things.
well, if I need to touch that money, then I have it. And I don't have to, thankfully, I don't have to think twice and say, oh, do I have it? I probably will. So that's the good part about it. But no, I don't feel like I'm deprived or anything like that. I still go and enjoy myself. Me and my girlfriend, we went numerous places last year. So
Mhm.
everything was fine.
Okay, well, that's
That's
good.
pretty powerful. So so Brad, so let me
Yes,
ask
sir.
you a question to the audience right now. If you had to give them a piece of advice on based on what you said, what is the most important thing you would tell the audience based on what you just said about how you go about saving the money, how you go about setting the budget? What is the most important thing that you would want to relay to the audience right now out of that?
Money is a behavior. How you
Mm.
treat your money is your behavior. Your behavior is a language as well. So just because you see like people, with fancy cars or something like that, that doesn't really mean much. Probably mean they want to show off or they want to live above their means and things like that. But if you really want to get to where you want to go, you have to set the behaviors.
Mm.
You have to set the
Woo-hoo.
behaviors down, and that's the key. So if you know that you can't afford
Mm.
this car, you have to have the discipline in your behavior. Say, hey, I can't do that. Maybe you have to go get a used car or something like that. But it's those choices and behaviors, and just like money compounds, your behavior choices and money compounds as well.
Ooh.
So set your behavior,
Ooh.
set your behavior down. Maybe you don't spend $100 for groceries. Maybe you cut it down to 50 this week. Maybe you don't go and buy those clothes you want. Maybe you say, hey, I'm gonna do it in a month once I get to this point here or close to this point. But those are choices and those are behaviors, if that makes sense.
It
Absolutely.
does make
Yeah.
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to cook at home. And that's one of my goals for 2024 is not going out. I kind of fell back into that trap, going out and buying stuff. And it's like, no, cook at home. Behaviors, those are choices. Because I could go easily and spend $30, or I could go home with food that I've already bought from the grocery store and save it. Let's say I was gonna do that back to back days and I spent $60. That $60 that's gone. Of course the food was good, but I made a choice to do that. Now, if I already have food at home that I cooked that I paid $10 for and I can eat off of that for the next couple of days and I already paid for it, really saved 50. But those are choices. And if you do that every week, that's $200 right there. If you spend $10 beforehand and instead of going out back to back nights, 60 minus 10, 50, 50 times 4 is 200. So that's $200 in your pocket. And now imagine if you went ahead and put that money into investment, high yields, or whatever, and you already have a good savings account. That's adding to your compound. But those are choices in your behavior. So anyone watching, it's your behavior. What do you want to do? Or do you want a budget? Do you want to, or do you want to just mindlessly spend? Because that's when you get into those traps.
Mindlessly spend.
Mindlessly spend. You just spending on this, spending on that, going here, going there, and next thing you know, you're not going to have any money. And then that's where you see those people who have six figures. They go and check the check because, and I'm not talking about people with the families, but you're seeing a lot of those. They're going to check the check because they probably got a $60,000 car, and then the insurance on that is high as well. Or they're spending
Mhm.
above their means at an apartment or buying a house when they're not ready for it. So that's those choices you got to say in your behavior and say, hey, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready for a car yet. Maybe I'll just stick to my car and save myself on $700 car payments.
That is so true. And so now you've said the word
Right.
budget several times, and we know that first, to get your finances in order, you must live on a budget and within a budget. Do you
Yeah.
use a budgeting app or do you use paper and pen? How do you budget?
I actually don't use those things. I kind of, track it mentally. So I'll
Really?
check to see. Yeah, I'll go into my bank app and say, okay, this is where I am. But and then if I'm over budget, like, okay, I can work with that. But you always want to try to stay within. But I,
Okay.
I, I do it. I do it mentally. I do it mentally.
Well,
Wow.
that's good. But one thing I can say about me and John is like how smart you are with money. And at 32, you've already decided that you're not going to work until the U.S. says 69.
Six,
What is it,
six,
67?
67.
I don't.
60
I
old.
don't. I don't. I don't
Yeah.
agree to that. I don't think that. I don't. I think that's the status quo. But I don't. I don't agree to that. I think that you could create the life you want now. But again, it starts with the behaviors today. So again, and I'm not,
Right.
and I'm not faulting anybody that has $600 or $700 car. I'm not doing that. So I'm just saying that if you have that, but you also don't have the finances in order, then that's when you're going to run into trouble. If you can afford a $600 to $700 car, then
Mhm.
cool, you could do that. But if you can't, and you're saying, well, I can't do this and I can't pay that, that's that's what I'm talking about with those choices. So if you already kind of knew that, you got to make that choice. Do you want to do it because everyone else thinks you should do it, or because you want to impress, or do you want to look for your future down the road? So that's why people laugh at my 2019 Kia Rio, but hey, it gets me
Shit.
to point A to point B.
Thank you, huh? And you tell them you laughing all the way to the bank while they laughing while they broke.
Hey, a friend of mine, a friend of mine, I never forget this. I didn't go to prom my senior year, but he did, and I remember, everybody, driving their parents' car, renting a car, and I remember he was like, "Yeah, I just drove my car. It was like a '97 Honda Accord,"
Mhm.
and I was like, "Why would you do that?" I never forget this, and it hits. He said, "A car is a car. A car is a
And a
car.
car is a car.
A
Because
car is a
my
car."
beat up ass will get me the same place your Kia will.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It is, but a
yeah.
car is a car.
Mhm.
And a lot of
A
people
car is
allow
a
their
car.
cars to identify who they are. And I don't ever want to be caught up in my identity being in a vehicle that depreciates. So I think
Soon
you
as you
are
leave the lot, as my brother always tell me.
right. As soon as you leave the lot, put the
Mhm.
signal on, you'll never go back and sell it for what you
Oh
got it for.
no,
Not the kind of cars that we drive, of course.
no. 3,000 might be 3 or 5,000 dollars less than it was when you drive off the lot.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
so. And so now, what are your feelings about stocks and mutual funds? Which one do you prefer?
I gotta. So my brother's more aggressive than I am. He's more aggressive, and he can live in that. And I'm more like my mom. We're more conservative. But after conversations with some people, I know that I have to diversify, and I have to be open to that. So I'm planning on. I am planning on getting into that. So you know, um,
Oh, and
as they
what's your
always say, you can't. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and what's your hesitation? Because I'm sure there are people listening or watching right now that they might be hesitant too. So, what is your hesitation? Do you have hesitation about stocks or and
I do.
mutual funds? So it's both of them. It's not just one. It's both.
More so the stocks, but I think with the stocks, it's really just shifting my mindset.
Mhm.
When you put your money into like savings or high yield or a CD, like that money is going to be there. Now the returns may not be the best, but
Mhm.
some of them are pretty good. With
Mhm.
stocks, you're really taking a risk, but you have to shift your mindset and say, okay, yes, it might dip, but it might return. It might dip 4%, but tomorrow it might be 22%. You don't
That's right.
Right.
know. So I really have to get to that point where I can shift my mindset to like not worrying so much about it, but just letting the stocks do its things. So that's something that I'm gearing up for, probably by next year.
Okay. Well, I think that's
Probably earlier than that.
Mhm.
okay. Well, that's good. I
Mhm.
recommend, but it's still your choice, and don't ever allow
Mhm.
someone to try to convince you to do something that you are uncomfortable with. So just always remember, if you are uncomfortable with it, is your money. You work hard for it, and do not ever let someone convince you to do anything with your money that give you that feeling in your gut, like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
can't
Why,
do this.
why did I do
And
that?
that's why. What'd you say, Mr. Johnny?
No, it's like, why did I do that? That's the feeling
Yeah.
you get in your gut. Why did I do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I have to get to that point. And I know I will have to, but
Mhm.
that's why I'm slowly but surely, like, getting more interested. And that's why I was like, okay, let me look at these high yield savings. Like,
Mhm.
how can I make my money work for me while I
Mhm.
sleep? So
That's right.
that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. And so your significant other, how does she feel about retiring like at 37? Does she agree with you on that, to where she want to continue to work, or will she want to be done with you?
She's actually getting to that point where she wants to kind of cut back and,
Okay.
kind of live a little bit. So, with me, she has no problem with that. That kind of aligns with,
Mhm.
with the future one day. So, but
Hmm.
on her end, that's something that she also wants to do as well. So, but that goes back to, like I said, I don't agree with. I'm not saying that you can't do it.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion. But I think that a lot of people can be at 39 and 40 or earlier than that and kind of, live a life on their own terms.
That is so
You
good.
hear those,
Yes.
but you hear those people, like, hey, I put my money in this and I'm living off of interest, because
Mm-hmm.
my money
Hmm.
compounded. And so it's like, okay, I want to get like that too.
Right. That would be a good
Yeah.
feeling. You
Yeah,
got something you want to add?
I do, and I want to touch on credit cards for a minute because
Okay.
I know that you have your savings and your high yield savings and stuff, and you've been kind of saving your income, living off of 70 80, saving 70 80%, and then living off budgeting the rest. So when it comes to credit cards,
Mhm.
how do you manage that? What do you believe?
So one of my friends, he always tells me to keep it below about 33%, and I think that's a great idea. But what I've learned is sometimes I kind of put all of my expenses on it and I just make sure I pay it off immediately. I either pay it off
Right.
immediately or I pay it off at the end of the month.
Right.
And
Mhm.
that came from because, again, in my early 20s, I remember I got like credit cards and I got like store cards, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how credit cards work. So
Ooh.
and so that's why, like, now I pay it off immediately or I pay it off at the end of the
Yes.
month. And when I was 23, 24, I had belt cards and JC Penney cards and things like that. And you see the statement and you're like, I'll pay that later. That's fine. You see the $300, you don't know how it works.
Right.
So you just say, oh, I owe $300. Fine. I'll pay $25 now. I'll be okay. But you don't know that it's harming your credit score. And you also don't know that they're just stacking up interest charges on you. And
Ooh.
so I want to say between 2016 and 2018, I want to say I paid about $5,000 off in credit card debt.
Wonderful.
But I was in debt though. I was in debt to Belks, Bank of America, Old Navy, JC Penney, and then on my credit union card, I owed $3,800.
Ooh,
And
great.
but again, you just look at that and say, "Oh, I just owe that, and this is whatever." You have to pay
Mm-hmm.
it off eventually, but you don't understand the ins and outs. And so with I paid the other $1,200 off. I just went ahead and just did that. But
Uh-huh.
my credit union card, when I owed 3,800, I had like a $7,000 limit. And so, I was at like 2,500 and I
Mm-hmm.
owed 3,000 or 3,000, and you just don't know. And so when it went over that and I was at 3,800, I kept looking at like, hey, it went from paying $25 a month to $75 a month. I said, wait, what? So when I looked at my statement, that's what taught me everything. Every time since I went over that $3,500 50% limit,
Mm-hmm.
everything after that was additional interest charges on top of the $75
Right.
that I had to
Right.
pay. So even if I paid for $1 candy, they was charging $10 in interest. So I was wondering how it went from 3,500 to 3,800. So I called them and I was like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Look, when you go over 50% of your limit, interest is coming every time."
Oh,
So then I had enough to pay it. I remember that day. I was sad. I said, "Wow, I got to use my savings to pay this," and I paid it. I paid it. It was a big hit, but from that day on, I never walked into any month with credit card debt.
that's
That's
good. That's good. So that's
mhm,
very important. Always pay those
mhm.
credit cards off every month because we want the interest working for us,
Yes,
not against us. So that
yes,
was a good thing that you did. That was a good choice.
yes. But see, a lot of the lessons in money came through failure and not knowing things. And
Ooh.
like I said, when I was 20, I was 90 had $95 to my name. So I didn't know. So then that's what created the budgets. And then with the credit cards, it's like, oh, okay, you don't know. But then it's like, okay, when you get hit with the fees and the interest charges and things like that, it's like, okay, this is how it works. So that's when, still I was talking to my mom and she's like, hey, you got to do this, try this. And I was just a willing learner with it. So whether it's my mom or my friend RC or my brother Brian or my cousin Mike, like all of those are people that I just talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, willing to learn. And so they say, hey, do it, try this or do this or do this. And I'm like, let me look into that. Let me look into that. So a lot of it was through failure, but now you learn from those things and then you try to learn from other people. So with the credit cards, I know my friend RC, he says to keep it 33%, but I just try to pay it off.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the best thing.
I just pay it off.
Pay
Yes.
it off, pay it off.
Yes.
Because when you're paying interest, you're wasting money.
Yeah.
So don't
Well,
pay.
and that's what got me with the car note because I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait, I want to say, shoot, 25% of it was going to interest. So every time you're making a payment, 25%, if not more, is going to that.
Right, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And you got anything you want to add? Because I got a few more questions I want to ask him before.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
No, but I like that what you said, Brad, that you learned through your failures.
That's powerful.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't want to fail at anything, but sometimes that's the only way you really learn if you fail. You fail, but you get up and you keep going, you try it again. So that
Hmm.
was good. That was good, Brad. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really, really was. And we not gonna keep you long, but I have two
Oh, go ahead.
burning questions. Okay, so this question is so like because I know you are wise with your money, or do you have a lot of subscriptions like to Netflix, Hulu, all them other things that the Apple, all those other things that the young people do? Do you have a whole bunch of subscriptions, internet and HBO Max?
I don't have many subscriptions. I really just have Spotify. Me,
Yeah, I can
y'all
hear
can
you.
still see me.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, mine's it just went out, but Spotify, YouTube Premium, and that's it.
Okay, so you're not wild then with subscriptions. So that shows also too that you're pretty wise with your money because you don't have so many subscriptions that you can't even name them.
Yeah. And that you
Yeah,
forget about
yeah. Well, the what I learned is it's kind of like what I was saying with those overdrafts. I just put those things on my credit card so that when it pops up, instead of it being an overdraft charge, it just pops up on your credit card, and you could just pay it with your cash.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
them.
And then the last
Yeah,
thing I want us
so
to
it
talk
helped me get
about,
track.
I heard you mention a business. Can you tell the audience what type of business you started?
So I started, and it started with something that I created when I was an after school director. It's the Green Print Social Emotional Learning LLC. When I started it as an after school director, I created this program at the site that I was a director over or co-director over, and it focused on social emotional learning. And so that became very successful, and I did write a book about it. So then I wanted to get in the classroom, and then when I got in the classroom, it started to morph into not just social emotional learning, but just focusing on culture, habit building, behavior development, and things like that. And so what I've been doing is I've been working with educators, I've been working with sports coaches on the things that we work on in my classroom: the behavior development, human development, growth development, but also doing it through social emotional learning so it can impact the organization's culture.
Wonderful. So now what made you decide to get a business?
Um, watching the impact I see on not just my students but the parents, and it's like, it's great that these guys are doing it. I love them, like my 17 kids that I have, I
Mm-hmm.
love them, but it would be selfish that if I didn't share it with other educators or coaches or other youth
Mm-hmm.
or other organizations. It would be selfish to not share the great things that they're doing and not let other people try to have an impact, through the program. Let them see it, let them feel it, just like my
Mm-hmm.
kids and my parents feel it every day. So that's what made me want to get into it. It's not nothing I'm looking, one day I would like to do it full time, but at this point, it's not something that I'm trying to do to be, to live a luxury or nothing like that. It's really just trying to make an impact.
Okay,
Nice.
wonderful. You got anything you want to
I,
add with that?
I do. Do you happen to have that book that you wrote? Anything so you can kind of hold
I,
up and show the audience?
I have the second copy that I wrote. It's
Okay.
the
Hold up.
Okay, hold
Blueprint
it up a little bit.
1.5. Can y'all see
Okay,
it?
so yes, the name of his book is The Green Print, and it's for educators, and it's for
Yes.
social and emotional learning.
Yes.
And if there's anyone that's a teacher or an educator that's listening to us, can you tell us where we can find your book?
They can find it on Amazon. They can contact me directly, but I also have my own site, thegreenprintscl.org, and they
Oh,
can go and purchase a copy there.
perfect, perfect. And then can you share with the audience if you the any type of difficulties that you had with establishing your LLC and becoming a business owner?
Really just the time, with teaching and being the lead trainer for Boys and Girls Club. It's really about just creating the time and the discipline to really just get it off the ground. Because I don't have that much time, I can't really devote as much time as I want to like contacting organizations or heads of organizations or whatever the case may be. But it's still not an excuse to not try to do it. So, getting your business off the ground, especially a new business, a lot of, people don't know who you are. So you have to try to find a way to establish credibility.
Okay, can you say
Mm.
that part one more time, that last part? Because a lot of us want to jump into things and we're thinking it's supposed to work like that.
Oh, it's
Sometimes
not.
even
It's not.
myself. So can you say that last part again? I think somebody
Oh,
else needs to hear
I
that.
mean, a lot of people don't know who I am. A lot of people won't know who you are as a new business. So you have to find a way to establish credibility, whether it's networking or applying for business grants like I applied for. Your social media presence. Like it's work. It's gonna take work. It's not just gonna show up
Hmm.
overnight. So whether I had a lot of time or have minimum time, whatever I do with my time is important. So like I tell my class, time can be your enemy or your friend. You have to choose. So I choose to make it my friend whenever I can.
Brad, can you say that one more time? You are a genius. Can you say that one more time?
So time can either be your enemy or your friend. And I like to say that to that's one of the things that even when I do it on the outside, that's what I tell them, you can get 2 hours out of it. You can invest that time or you can spend that time. So if you invest
Right.
it, you're getting something out of it. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to slip up every now and then, but you want to get as much in as you can. But if you're spending that time just goofing around or whatever, then you just wasted 2 hours that you'll never get back. While other people probably got an hour and a half out of it or the whole 2 hours out of it. So in my case, there's a lot of people who are busy and they have their own, business on the side, and they
Mm-hmm.
might have an hour. They don't invest that time into the business. They spend that time probably doing other stuff. So I always, when I get a chance, I always try to invest my time into, the green print so I can get something out of it.
Wonderful. You
Nice,
got
I
nice.
try.
anything?
I
Good,
try.
good,
I'm
good.
not
Yes,
always
I'm sure.
perfect, but I try.
Yeah,
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You got anything you want to add
I mean, wow, Brad. I mean, this you're kind of amazing because
for your age?
yeah, for your
Yes.
age and everything that you're trying to accomplish, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's pretty amazing. So I think my last question is, and with you and you dating and you where you are and you and your girlfriend, right? How, and I know you mentioned it earlier, but I want to ask this one question here. How does your girlfriend, how does she handle money? Because I know how you handle it, but how does she handle money?
She's gotten much better actually. Wasn't never bad or nothing like that, but
Mm.
we grew up a little bit different, and so we both of us, we see things differently. And I think what some of the things with, being in a relationship is all about compromise. So
Right.
it's just like, okay, you grew up like that. So how did you grow up? So you can understand why they think that way. And the same thing with me. I did not grow up with, my one of the best things my mom did is when I turned 19, she never gave me anything for me. She never gave me anything.
That was a blessing to you. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a different perspective of it because I went through those stages of I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to budget. I had to figure out how to save. I had to figure out
Hmm.
all of those things. And of course I had to ask questions. So on her end, she's gotten much, much better. Like I said, she was never bad at it at all. But she's gotten much, much better at it. And she said something that was really important one time. She said, we gotta lean into the other person's strengths. So for me, that's my
Mm.
strength. So has learned to lean into that.
Okay. So like based on what you said, did her parents kind of like give her mostly everything that she wanted, which was different from the way you were raised? When you were 19, you were like figured out.
I won't. I don't want to say give her everything that she wanted. I won't say that. She just had more access to it,
Okay.
you
Okay,
know.
I like that. I
Mm-hmm.
like that.
And there's no, there's
Uh-huh.
nothing wrong with that because you want that.
Mm-mm.
You want that, for your children. So
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I
Right.
wouldn't
Right.
say like everything that she wanted. No, not like that. But she just had more access to it than I did. So because I didn't have that access. I would have loved to have that, but it was those hard knocks lessons that helped me out. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, she's doing a really good job.
That's wonderful. And
Yes.
but I like what you said, which is true. In order even to make a relationship and a marriage work, you have to lean on each other's strengths.
Hmm.
And so if she's already figured out that your strength is the finances, then y'all are gonna do well. She'll lean in on you and
Yes.
you're gonna take y'all to the highest and shoot by 40 years old or 39,
Yeah.
you won't be punching nobody's clock.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
I've been doing that for a long time. And you
Hmm.
just taught, hey, you gotta work until this. And I don't really want to do that.
Well, that's good. And see, Brad, we getting ready to close. But what I'll ask you
Okay.
to do, can you, and plus you're an educator, so I know you can do this. Can
Oh.
you give the
Hmm.
audience some pointers? So you're a 32-year-old male, and it could be a male or a female, someone single. Can you give them
Mhm.
some wisdom when it comes to their finances?
I would say that be a learner with this. It is not something that you just
Whew.
wake up and really just know how to do. Like
Mm,
my story is a prime example of that. You don't, and a lot of it's gonna come down to like asking people who are really good at it, how do they do those things? Because it's just so much that you could learn from them. And it's still stuff that I'm learning now. I'm learning new things. So, and some of the conversations about the stocks and stuff came from my girlfriend's dad, Mr. Sims, who's a fantastic, fantastic man. But he told me straight up. He said, "You want to get to a certain spot, you got to diversify." And I said,
mm-hmm.
and I just asked, like, "How do you do that? How do you do that?" So just being a learner, because a lot of people do not know how to budget, how to save, how to invest, how to put money in an annuity, why you should put money into annuity, why you should put money in a stock, why you should put money in a mutual fund, why you should put money into a high yield savings account, why you should put money into a certificate of deposit, why you should max out your Roth IRA. So a lot of people don't know. So you got to ask questions, be a learner with it, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to live below your means. Don't be afraid to do those things because you have to run your own race. You can't look at what someone else is doing. Just because somebody has a nice car, they could be broke. You could be, car. You could be car rich and cash poor. Same thing with a
Amen.
house. So you can't. You have to. Those are things you learn though. There are people out there like that
Yes.
that are car rich and house rich, but they're cash poor. So just being a willing learner of finance, from the saving part to the investment part to the budgeting part, finding out how money works for you, find those things out and just kind of find your identity on how you manage your money. And don't be afraid to have that identity. So again, when I was coming up, oh, Brad is this, but I don't regret it at all because it set me up to where again I can go to those places and I'm comfortable. Only thing that I'm worried about is, hey, this is what I have in my mind. It doesn't matter what I got over here.
Mm-hmm.
Right here is what I have. This is
Mhm.
what I got. And I go into every situation thinking like that. So the best piece of advice is to learn. Be willing to learn. It's so much. And it's never ending. Be willing to learn. Be willing to learn.
Brad,
Yeah.
that was
That's a
awesome.
great nugget.
Yes, and I'll let you close us out. But I just want to thank you so much for being on our show. Like you, like you're 32, but you have the wisdom of like a 55-year-old. Like I don't even know how you got this smart with money because no one told us when we was 32
Mm-mm.
to be this smart.
We had to
So
But you know,
learn.
yeah, we
but
had to.
I ask questions. I listen. I research. I see how did they get to that part? And
Mm-hmm,
you read up on it. It's like, okay, that's how they got there. And you just ask. I talked to my mom. I talked to my dad. I have
mm-hmm,
my friends that I go to. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? So and so. I'm
mm-hmm.
always willing because it's stuff that they know that I don't know,
Right. And it's
Mm-hmm.
stuff
and
that
they
you
help me
know
out with
that
a
they
lot.
don't know. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
you know
Oh
what, we
yeah,
got to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
We got to help each
yeah,
other. Well, I
yeah. Got to
personally
help each other.
thank you. I have completely enjoyed you so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Wait, one thing we didn't discuss one thing. I know y'all. I don't know how much time you got. We didn't discuss about like why like the car payments, like paying off your car. Did we
Oh
Well,
discuss
well,
that?
let's hit
let's
on.
go
Let's hit
ahead,
on
hit
it.
on it, because you know
Let's
how
hit
many
on it.
people out here got car
Let's hit
payments
on
that
it.
they
Okay,
shouldn't
so
have.
we got a few
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah. Let's
Yes,
hit
go
on it.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, because I told you in the preliminary sessions that I felt like buying your car was like it's so important to have some ownership in some things
Mm-hmm.
because when you have ownership, it generates a lot more wealth for you. So
Yes.
Yes, it does.
my parents have been talking to me about buying a house, and my friend RC said the same thing. He has his own house 15 minutes up the road, but
Mm-hmm.
ownership is very important because it generates something. And so when
Uh-huh.
I bought my car, when I paid my car off 2021, the reason I did it was because I was traveling to Newberry every day and I wasn't working my Boys and Girls Club job that would help pay for my car note. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was losing money. I wasn't, making the money that I was. I took a step back. So I had to pay more, had to dip more in my savings. And it's what you both said earlier. Your car is depreciating. So I said,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
okay, if my car is depreciating, I'm going up to Newberry 50 miles every single day. I can either pay it off and free that $380 that I pay in a car note, and even with car
Uh-huh.
insurance, because a lot
Uh-huh.
of people don't know if you pay your car off, your car insurance actually slashes.
Yeah.
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 It does.
Yes, it
Yeah, it
does.
slashes. I can do that now and then generate more money in the future, or I could
Mm-hmm.
continue to lose money. So when
Mm-hmm.
I paid it, I was still comfortable, but it was a big hit. But I was
Mm-hmm.
still comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But it allowed me, I started working with Boys and Girl Club again, so it allowed me to save entirely way more. But I was
Wow.
gonna say it's kind of like I told you before, it's like owning your masters in music. When you own your masters in music, you have control of where your music goes and who gets to distribute it. So instead of talking to the record label, they're talking to you. So you get to get a big size of the pie. That's why the Taylor Swift controversy, I don't know if y'all kept up with that. That's why that was so big. She owns her masters now, so she gets a substantial piece of the revenue now because she owns it. But you have to
Ah,
pay. You have to pay up front to get that. And a lot of artists don't have the capital to do that. So that's why it's a rare thing.
Wow. And so you comparing owning the masters, right, to
Yeah.
owning your car.
Yeah.
You are in
Because you have
control.
you have
yeah.
to you have to have the capital to pay for it, first of all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to. But then when you pay for it, that car note, if you pay for it early, that car note that you normally paying, you saving thousands,
You are
thousands. And
Mm-hmm.
thousands.
you're saving and making thousands in your car insurance, in your car note. So you're generating more money for yourself when you pay for it.
And you know what the good thing about it too, Brad, since you said that? The
Yeah.
good thing about it is when you're ready to upgrade your car again,
Hmm.
you will have the revenue to
Yep.
go to the dealer and buy one in cash.
That's exactly why it's important. And see,
Yes.
that's why it's important. That's
Yeah.
exactly why it's important. So when I did that, I wasn't thinking about that. But then when I started, I was like, wait, I'm saving more. I'm doing this. I
Wow.
don't have to worry about a car note. I don't have to do that.
Mhm.
And that money was going back to me and then some. It was going back to me and then some. So then when you're making more, instead of saying, oh, I got to pay for this, Nope, it's going back to you. Instead of saying with your car insurance, like, oh, I got to pay $200 something a month, it's 95 or something like that. But that money is going back to you. It's going back to you. So that's why I compared it to that, because it's generating something for you. So that's why I was saying before, like, if that's what you got to do, you have to do that. They can laugh at you, they can do all of that, but you just got to think about the end goal in mind.
You are a little genius. The end goal in mind. So now, as
think about the end goal in mind.
You do not have a car payment.
I haven't paid a car note since December 2021.
Do you regret that at all?
Not at all. It's the best financial decision I ever made.
Whoa. So if we have anybody listening, we recommend, if you can, pay your car off and do like Brad
if you have the capital, do it.
If you have the capital, do it. And then don't turn around and spend the money in purses and shoes. Save the money. So when you get ready to buy another car, you can pay for it in cash. And when you go and pay for a car in cash, you really do have more negotiating power also. It's like the masters. You can walk out.
Because you have the power.
You can do it. Yeah. You have the power. You can't, if you wanted to sign Taylor Swift, she's negotiating with you. 99% of everyone else, you negotiate with them. She's negotiating with you because she can walk away and still keep a substantial amount of her revenue. That's why she's a billionaire now.
Wow, because you say she bought her masters. Is that how that goes?
Well, she's re-recording. She wanted to buy her masters, but they wouldn't let her. So the music that she made that was hit records, there was a clause in her contract that allowed her to re-record them. So she's re-recording them under her own imprint. So she couldn't have her original masters, so she's re-recording them and she's owning those. So if you want to go talk to so if you want to go talk to Taylor Swift has to talk to you. You don't talk to Taylor Swift. But that's because, hey, she can do it.
Right. Just like you gonna be able to do with your finances.
I'm gonna try.
You got this. You got this. Brad, thank you. Yeah, because in our preliminary, we talked about that, but I didn't bring my notes. So I'm so glad that you remember, because I think it's very important for our audience to understand the importance of ownership.
Yes.
It opens doors and it gives you options and it puts you in control. And what I remember that you said, when you walk in a car dealership, if they don't want to deal with you, guess what? You can leave. Walk out.
Okay. Yep. But everyone else, you have to negotiate with them, and then that's when they give you the runaround on stuff. This is what you say, Mr. John?
keep you for about 5 hours sitting in the dealership.
Keep you for 5 hours, and then they throwing stuff over your head. But see, because I have that, it's like I know about the interest, I know about that. So it's like you're gonna ask those questions, like, what's that gonna look like? What's this gonna look like? It's like, if you can't agree to my terms, then I'm going to leave in my own car. And so they don't want that.
No, they don't want that. They don't want that. Brad, thank you so much. Again, can you tell the audience the name of your book and where they can find it?
Once again, thank you so much. It's the Green Print. This is my second copy, is volume 1.5. You can find it on Amazon. You can contact me directly and I can ship it to you, or you can go to the website www.thegreenprintscl.org, and then you can purchase a copy there.
Okay. All right. You got anything you want to add? I just personally want to thank you. I've enjoyed it.
No, I thank you guys.
This is great.
I appreciate it.
Great. Yeah. Great, Brad. Great.
Great. Great. Well, thank you again for being a part of our show. We appreciate it. And we picked up some slogans from you.
Y'all did?
Yes, we did. So thank you again, Brad. And you have a good afternoon, okay?
Y'all do the same. Okay. It's good to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for watching our show, The Money Talk. I hope that you enjoy the content that we presented with Brad. He is a young genius. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to our channel and like it. We will be here every Thursday with new content, and we look forward to seeing you on next Thursday. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.